What is up, y'all? It's Tuesday again. And in the tradition of Tuesdays, I am here. Running a little late today, so as you can see, I'm not even fully set up yet. But I'm trying something new. Let me know how the audio quality is because I moved the mic. See it? Oh, there it is. And it should sound right. I'm checking the wave thing, and it looks like I'm coming through clear, but do let me know if it's not. I also set up a little cocoon, which should control some of that room noise as well. So we'll see. We'll see how it does today. I'm trying to upgrade the audio and the look a little bit. Have that nice sound of a microphone without the microphone being up in my face. So, what's up? All right, good news, hearing good things. All right, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Simeon. Cool. So, today I wanted to talk about a handful of things, and I didn't write any of them down. So let me actually do this real quick. I'm going to see if I can edit the title of things while it's in motion. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the anxiety that comes with sharing something new. So let's see. What do I want to say? How get over the fear of taking risks and trying new things. Is it gonna let me? I actually don't know if it's gonna let me update the things now that we're started, but we're gonna dang well try. So let's find out. So I think it worked, and that way, that way people will be able to know what the heck we're talking about today when they look on their various streaming platforms. So anyways, let's talk about how to get over the fear of taking risks and trying new things, because I'm in the middle of that right now. I have, so for context, I think some of y'all are familiar that I have spent the last year and a half working on let me start again. It's early. I haven't had any coffee yet. Like, it's a mess out here. You want to see this amazing thing that I drink every morning? Let me drink a little bit of this, and you can all judge me for drinking this, and then I'll try to use my brain after I've had a second to collect my thoughts. This is like a spinach and fruit and other stuff protein shake, which I found out today is vegan. Well, I realized it was vegan because I used the pea protein, and then I put oat milk in it, and I was like, oh wait, that was all the animal stuff, so now this is a vegan protein shake. Which is neat. Oh dang, what's up, C# Fritz and friends? Hello everyone. I hope that y'all are excited to we're gonna do code later, but to start, I want to talk a little bit about kind of, you know, what's on the screen here, getting over fear and taking risks, and this is very top of mind for me. I'm just trying to choke down this spinach shake. And then I just wear it for the rest of the day. Okay. All right. Oof. Spinach shake indeed. What's up? What's up? Hello. Thank you so much for the raid. How you doing, Snania? Hello, Simplu. What's up, V-Dog? See you in there. Okay, so let's talk about this, because this is something that I have been like losing sleep over recently. So many of you may be familiar with the fact that I have been doing like independent media creation for the last year and a half or so. And I was working in developer experience, developer relations. I was helping my team, I ran the docs team, I ran the developer relations side of the team, content, technical writing, and then I also, toward the end, was overseeing the product marketing and the event marketing and kind of a lot of the strategic outreach that you would do at a company to run your developer program, like any developer facing company. And while I was there, I started to see just a shift in the market. I've talked about that at length, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but the short answer is I think events are going to become there's a different strategic value. They're more for partnerships than for new contact, right? And so for new contact, for generating awareness, we need a new playbook, and my gut says we're moving to video. YouTube just overtook Netflix as the most watched platform. It's where people are going for TV, right? People watch a huge amount of TV, despite the fact that none of us want to see another Zoom meeting for the rest of our lives. We're all sick of video calls. We're all sick of webinars. We're sick of remote presence in general, but we're still watching a lot of TV, right? So for companies that want to reach out and get people to pay attention, if they're not doing it through some in-person thing, which has been really hard to get people to show up for, you need something different. And my hunch is that it's going to be through entertainment, through video. And that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half. But the challenge is that I can see into my own future, right? I know where I'm trying to go. I see a whole network of developer-focused television, a version of the Great British Bake Off that's built around devs, reality shows where we follow companies as they go from, startup through raising their seed round and hopefully finding some product market fit. I think those types of shows would be fascinating to watch. I want to see how that stuff works. A version of Shark Tank that's quite literally just founders pitching VCs, right? Like there's so many fun things that we could do, so many good shows that we could make. We just need to make them, right? And so that brings me to where I am today, or more specifically where I was about a year ago. And a year ago, what I was doing was stuff that felt very familiar. I was making tutorials. I was, doing explainer videos, stuff that we'd all seen before. And I knew that wasn't where I wanted to stay. So I started pushing toward the more toward the vision, right? And my hope was that I'd be able to go straight from tutorials to like the game show. But the problem with the game show is that it costs as much as a conference to put together. And it's unknown, it's unproven, so if it goes poorly, you're just out that money and you get no benefit, right? So risk aversion is big. So we need baby steps. So I've been working on things like I have a series that I've been calling 4 Web Devs, 1 App. I've actually renamed it. It's coming back out as the Web Dev Challenge because that actually makes more sense. I do a show called Web Lunch where I interview people over a meal, or not even interview, it's just a conversation, right? Trying to have those good conversations that you get toward the end of a day where everybody's more comfortable and you can talk about the stuff that's really important. Like, how do you know you're having a good career? Like, why does any of this stuff matter? Those types of questions that I think about late at night and love to talk through with other people. That's that series. And along the way, I'm still doing lots of coding content, learn with Jason, and like this stream I do usually I'm coding. But the problem is that every time I introduce one of these new things, there's this element of risk because I'm trying something I've never tried before. And if I get it wrong, I'm in big trouble because, we're trying something for the first time. And if you try something for the first time and it fails, it can be really hard to get a second chance. And so there's this resistance that I feel that if I'm going to do something like this, if I don't get it exactly right, then I'm going to blow it. This is my only chance. We're never going to get to try again. So it's got to be perfect. And that makes me resistant to sharing it, right? Like I don't want to show people the work in progress because what if they mistake it for the final product and decide it sucks? I don't want to share drafts because people might look at the draft and say like, well, this isn't as good as it could be. And I'll say, yeah, I know it's a draft. I'm working on it. And all of that leads to just this like terror, like this feeling in the pit of my stomach that if I share something too early, I'm going to lose the chance to do it at all. And that to me that to me is really like, I don't know, that's a feeling that I'm 20 years into my career and I still don't know how to get rid of that feeling. Um, and so I feel a lot of, I don't know, it's hard because I think that feeling is the feeling of growth because you're doing something that's new. You're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. You're putting something out there that people might hate. And that feeling isn't good, but the results of pushing through that feeling tend to be net positive and usually strongly net positive. So that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit is the like what are your coping strategies for this? Like and this can be anything. You know, I've done this when I was in a band. It was about showing somebody a new song that you'd written. When I was in an agency, it was about showing somebody a new design that kind of departed from the traditional, like, everybody's site looks like this. When I was in DevRel, it would be just, I mean, everything. We were making it up as we went along. Every time we had a big project, we wanted to take a big swing. We had to go make a pitch to people who didn't, they weren't like, a lot of this industry is people who don't necessarily care about the specific things that you care about. We're all kind of tied together by an overarching goal, which is that we're a group of people, a company that wants to build a thing that is so good that other people want to use it and pay for it, right? That is the ultimate goal. And everything else inside of a company is sort of feeding that end purpose of make a thing so good that people want to use it and pay for it. So if I'm in the DevRel team and I'm trying to talk to somebody about this fun initiative, and I know that if I get more visibility into the community, if we show the community that we're a company that understands their problems, that is not full of, empty suits, that we are in fact developers who have the same problems and feel the same feelings and are dealing with the same stuff every day, then I know that the community will see that and say, well, yeah, you're like me. I want to hang out with people like me. And then they're going to want to use the tools because we all use the tools that our friends use. That's how most of us get the stack that we have, is we look at people we respect and we ask them what they're using, and then we start using the parts of it that make sense. And so all of that sort of adds up to, in my mind, a really clear strategy in developer relations. You do it this way because it works. However, none of that, at no point in what I just said, did any of it translate to a sale or a dollar, right? It's all about creating an environment where people feel right so that they want to use the things that we use. And like eventually that does lead to sales, because the extrapolation of that is if people see us as a company and they like the way that we do things, and they understand, because they're in proximity to us now, they're part of our community, they understand the problems that we're trying to solve, they'll recognize which of those problems are theirs, and eventually they will reach for us and they'll try it. And then they have, now there's like a bond. There's people who have tried, they're struggling through the same things together, they're using the same solutions. It's part of a group. You're a community now. And I know that results in higher loyalty. So, and if we want to get into like cold business metrics, higher average customer lifetime value. It has a higher activation rate because once you sign up, you're more likely to actually use the tools because you're part of a community that will support you in doing so. It has a higher likelihood to sign up in the first place because people want to be part of healthy communities. But all of those are second and third order effects. And to go take that to somebody who like looks at a spreadsheet and says, well, why would I give you $50,000 if you're not going to bring me a set number of signups? And then you have to, you're pitching an idea to somebody who thinks that way, and your idea has to survive that pitch or else you don't get to make it, right? And so I think a lot about that feeling, that anxiety of having to take somebody something new and knowing that they might not love it the way that you love it, but you've still got to convince them to move across that starting point and let you actually go. So yeah, it's very, I don't know. It's I'm feeling it today because I got a project that I'm in the final stages of, and we're into feedback. And I don't know what the client's going to think. I don't know if they're going to like it. I hope they like it. But also they might hate it. And then I'm going to have to figure out what I do, because it's video. You can't just like rewrite it. Like, we shot what we shot. And so there's, yeah, a little panicky last night and coming into this morning, and the meeting's at this afternoon. So I get to be worried about it for another 8 hours or so. It's going to be fine. Like, it's going to be fine. Yeah. But yeah, timing of is it ready yet is so hard. I think that's such a good point, because, you know, if you hold it too long, then you're just polishing, right? And also the such a big risk comes from if you don't share things, you can't get feedback, and so now you're doing hypotheticals. You're sort of playing an imaginary round of feedback where you sort of role play other people and what they might think of your thing, which is, I mean, like, that's good early on, but it doesn't scale. Once you get past one or two hypothetical decisions, you're into exploding mathematical complexity, because, you know, the number of possibilities, if one of your guesses is wrong, starts to approach numbers that, like, we can't comprehend with human minds. And so the really challenging piece there is that you just have to, you got to know, like, when am I starting to role play versus actually working? And if I'm trying to game theory whether or not somebody's going to like my thing, at that point I think I'm just procrastinating, and that's what I'm trying to recognize is, like, I am scared to share my work. I have been, I always probably will be. And so there is a point where I can feel myself coming up with excuses not to share. And when I feel that feeling, if I can't come up with something other than what if they hate it, then I have to just decide, okay, like, it's ready enough. Like, there's nothing else I can do without getting feedback. Yeah, I think, like, exactly, like, taking big swings or just taking risks at all, if it doesn't feel risky, it's not a risk, right? Like, you have to be doing something that presents some amount of, not danger, but, like, you know, there has to be a downside or it's not a risk. And I think the trick is that as you do more things and get more experience, your instinctive feel for what is and isn't super risky gets much better. And so, you know, I'm talking about this project that I did today. The risk that I feel isn't like I did something that is wildly different. The risk is I've never done this type of thing before. And, you know, there's a part of, the risk is if I think I'm better at this type of thing than my client does, then we're in for a bad time, because if I made something that they don't like, right? That's the question. And so the risk then becomes, it's more about whether or not tastes are aligned than whether or not like the brief is aligned, for example. Like, we know everybody agreed on what we were making. I'm not taking a risk like, here, give me an unknown sum of money and I'll give you an unknown quantity of work. It was a very clear scope of work, but I'd never done it before. So that's where the risk comes in, is like, I'm trying to present my vision of a thing, and the risk is that when I show them my vision, if it doesn't line up with their vision sufficiently, it could be a big problem. And so that's what scares me. Now, that to me feels logically like this part of me is in knots and panicking. This part of me knows that this is a calculated risk, and I'm fairly confident that I did what we described in the brief, and I'm fairly confident that we did a good job. I love the crew that I worked with. I think the story that we told, the footage that we got, I think it was amazing. So I love it. And if it was just me, I would publish it. if the client doesn't feel the same way, that's not because what we did was bad. It's because what we did was different from what they were expecting or different from what they wanted. And that's a very important thing that I keep reminding myself up here, because down here, I'm like, what if they hate me? What if they throw me in the gutter? What if this is the end? So I think that's sort of the trick is like, you have to take risks, but through experience, you can get to the point where taking risks doesn't carry as much danger, if that makes sense. Like, there's a big difference between deciding to try a new format for videos if you're already making videos, and deciding to sell everything you own. Thank you so much. Can I trade you? Thank you. Coffee delivery. Thank you, Marissa. So there's a, okay, let me start over. There's a huge difference between deciding that you're going to take a risk on a new format of a thing that you do all the time. Like if you make video, trying a different format of video. That is a world of difference away from the risk of selling everything you own, moving to Hollywood and trying to make your way as a movie star when you've never acted before. So the amount of risk is something that you can calibrate to where you're pushing yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone. But the downside, like if I try a format of video that doesn't work, I know that I can still do the other formats that I liked, you know? So the risk is pretty low. I'm embarrassed that I made something that wasn't as good as it could have been, right? Or people make fun of me for trying something that comes off cringy when I thought it would come off cool. That's fine, I can live with that. But like, I'm not moving to LA to see if I can become a movie star in the next like Avengers movie, because I've never done any acting where I didn't hire myself as the talent, right? So that would be too big a risk. That there's too much at stake if I try that. And so I think about it as like incrementally increasing. So I think about it as like incrementally increasing the risk that you can take, and the intention being, I always want to be pushing myself a little bit further. I always want to be doing something that's a little bit more ambitious of what I'm doing today. And there will always be risk to that. And the downsides are that, like, who knows, maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe I get embarrassed. Maybe the job goes poorly and I've got some explaining to do. But ultimately life goes on, and materially things don't change that much. And I have to, recover, but I'm not scrambling. I'm not in danger. And so that tends to make it feel like, because then there's two aspects of the panic, right? The one aspect, and I remember this from when I was a kid, because I decided I was going to go be a rock star, and the risk that I took was, I am going to quit my job with $100 in my bank account, and I'm going to get in this van with these other dudes, and we're going to go tour the country and play shows. We've only got half of this tour booked. And if we don't book the rest of it, and if we don't make gas money at every single show, we won't be able to make it back home, because none of us has more than $100 in our bank account. And I did that for a couple years, and there were definitely times where we're in Texas and I'm arguing with a doorman saying, like, look, if you don't pay us the money you said you were going to pay us for gas, I live at your house now. Like, there's no alternative here. There's like, I am not running with a cushion. and that type of risk is bad. Like, don't take those kinds of risks, because that's how you end up, you ruin your credit, you ruin you kind of ruin your life, right? Like, there are so many places where I narrowly escaped doing something that would have had decades long repercussions. There were points where, like, if we got a flat tire on the van, we didn't have any money. We weren't going to be able to fix it. If we had lost a guitar, if we'd gotten robbed, we didn't have insurance. What were we going to do, right? It would have been catastrophic for us. We would have been stranded in, like, Phoenix, Arizona, with no way to get home. And those sorts of things, like, yes, we all had our safety nets of, various levels of safety nets. Some of us had our parents, some of us had friends. But that, and not everybody has that too. So that's another thing to calibrate in your risk. So all that to say, that not all risk is created equal. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like I'm off on a little bit of a tangent here. Yeah, coffee perks in the new studio. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, being judged passionately on something or being judged negatively on something that you're passionate about is very rough. Like, it really, really sucks when you're excited about something and you show it and somebody's kind of like, it hurts. Like, that's a pretty brutal way to spend a few minutes. But usually you don't just get like, I don't like it. You get like, well, what if you tried it like this? What if you changed that? I didn't understand why you did this. And that's the feedback that we call a gift, because that's an opportunity for you to understand what's different between what you were imagining and what actually came out in the final product. And I think that if you are getting good feedback and if you're working with people who want you to be better, I mean, there's definitely like, if you're working with people who just hate everything you do, like, okay, you're with the wrong people, and like, I don't solicit feedback from my mom, because my mom literally does not care about anything that I do, and me showing her, she's gonna be like, that's nice, honey. Because she just, like, she's not interested. Like, she has no world where she cares at all about anything that I'm working on. She's excited that I'm doing okay. And, we're gonna meet up and play canasta and cook dinner. And that's the relationship we have. But like, I'm not going to her for feedback on my work, because we're not in the same world work-wise. And similarly, there are people who, like, I have some folks that I used to be really close with who the feedback was always just negative. Like, you're doing this part wrong. This wasn't thought through. I don't know why you would even bother with this. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And like, every time I talked to him, I just felt bad. And over time, I just kind of drifted away from him. I was like, I'm sorry, but I just, like, I feel sad every time we talk. Do you want to do that fast so that it's over? Marissa's trying to do her Velcro in slow motion, but it's... No, I'm taking this tape up. Well, just whip it up. All right. Here we go. Lots of noise. Good? Good. I am happy, actually. Thank you. Making more noise? All right. Risk assessment or impact assessment are really should be simple. That's the important part to me. Yeah, I think that is also really good when you talk about like risk and impact. If you can just run through, like, what do I stand to gain? What do I stand to lose? And what is the cost of being right? And what's the benefit of being right? What's the cost of being wrong? And if the benefit of being right is that your boss pats you on the head and the cost of being wrong is that you get fired, that's probably not a good risk, right? Like, there's maybe different ways you could approach that. But if if the cost of, or the benefit of being right is that it unlocks a new category of business for you, and the cost of being wrong is that you have a video that underperformed, it's kind of hard not to take that risk, right? And this is where I think trying stuff and seeing that almost always the downside is you feel bad for a bit, right? When we're talking creatively, like, I'm not talking about risks outside of work, right? But like, if the thing you're trying to do is, I want to try a pattern, and you try it and it doesn't work, unless you like actively ignored tasks at work to do whatever it was you wanted to do, probably the downside is we're not going to do that, like, kill it. And you feel bad because you wasted an afternoon putting together a proof of concept and nobody liked your proof of concept. The upside is that maybe you get to influence the way that the company builds software, or maybe in my case, I get to influence the way that the industry does video. And all of those are like high upsides. And if the downside is just like, I feel bad for a day or two, I'm willing to take that risk. Like, I will be wrong a few times if it means that I get to be right. A lot of my career is built on a lot of, I felt bad for a few days because I tried a thing and it didn't work. I tried a thing and nobody wanted it. I tried a thing and it didn't work. But then you get the one that does work, and it just, that kind of, the downside is like a down day, and you just kind of come back to baseline. When you're right, you actually like move to you like ratchet up, right? And that's how I think about my risk. Is if I get this right, does it ratchet me up to a higher hourly rate? Does it ratchet me up to a new pay band? Does it ratchet me up to a category of content that is more impactful, that I enjoy more? Like each of those steps is one that is it's hard to take, and it sucks when you're wrong. But once you've made it, once you've had the success, it's sort of it's almost like you've now raised the baseline of your entire career. And so to me, those are very, very valid things to do, because this is progress, right? As you identify something that you can go and do that would help you move up to the next echelon, whatever that may be in your career. You just take risks until you get there, right? And remember, the risks that are worth taking are the ones where if you're wrong, you're sad or embarrassed, not you're fired. I think that when you do things that are scary, you build up resilience against the fear. I would say yes, but maybe not in the way that. So like I have no resilience against the fear. Like, like I said, I have a project right now that I have to get feedback later today, and I am terrified of what they're going to say. So that fear doesn't go away. But what does happen is I think that the more you do things, the more you realize that the consequences aren't life or death. And I also think that as you take more risks, you see, like, you gain a better sense of what worked and what didn't. And that calibrates your gut feel, your instincts for when a risk is a safe one. And I think that the fear of showing somebody something new, of trying something new, that never goes away. But I don't think that's the material fear that makes it hard to do something, because my fear of being embarrassed is there. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be wrong. But the fear that used to hold me back was the fear that if I fail, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my safety net. I'm going to end up, in a van down by the river with no fallback plan, and I'm just alone. And that was kind of the spiral that I would get on. Is like, if I screw this up, everything ends. And then you take that risk and you screw up, and you realize that, like, you still have your job. They just say, hey, don't do it like that again. And, like, obviously you can't keep doing it like that, or you'll end up on a performance improvement plan. But if you do these risks and you realize that, like, small risks typically have very small consequences, and you can usually calibrate risks to be high reward, low downside, all of that kind of builds a set of instincts where, as you succeed, you learn that you can succeed. As you fail, you learn that failure isn't permanent, and that it's actually just a lesson that helps you make the next risk more efficiently, I guess. And then you sort of build this muscle that takes away the irrational fears, I would say, and leaves you with just the real fear, which is, what if they don't like it? So yes, I think you learn what's worth being afraid of, is maybe the right way to phrase it. And you also, I think, start to really feel more strongly that everything is, like, it's going to be okay. Like, being wrong isn't the end, and a project failing isn't the end. It's just the next step. Let's see, what else we got? I'm not going to be the next Thor. At best, I would be like the bartender or something. Follow your dreams safely, I think, is a very good way to go about that. Don't take criticism and feedback from people who aren't in the arena. I would say, I don't. This is such a nuanced thing. Yes, and right? Like, I wouldn't let somebody tell me how to make videos who wasn't making videos. But if somebody doesn't like my story, they don't need to be a pro for that, right? Like, if the vibe is wrong, the vibe is wrong. And if somebody gives me feedback that, like, I don't know, this one just didn't feel right, I don't care if they're in the arena. I care that they didn't get what I was trying to do. And so I do think it's important to calibrate for like what kinds of feedback you'll only take from professionals. Like I wouldn't let somebody tell me, we've all had the conversation where, you know, we're in a room and we're talking about the way we're building our software, and somebody who has zero frame of reference for the product starts telling us why we should rip it all out and use this other thing that they like. That's not useful feedback, right? That's just somebody sort of inserting an opinion without information. And that, I think, it's good to learn to ignore that and to not be affected when somebody who doesn't know what's going on starts giving you very specific feedback about the way you're doing things with no context on why you made the choices you made. However, if you build something and somebody says, this feels bad, you don't discount that feedback, right? It doesn't matter who they are, right? Taking feedback from everybody, but calibrating for like what level of expertise they bring, and knowing when we've moved from like feedback to opinions, that I think is a really important skill to build, because otherwise you'll just be kind of, I mean, like we've all looked at tech Twitter. It's just people yelling at each other because of like, you don't like the thing that I like, and therefore I think we should fight. That's not useful. That's not feedback. That's not even really discussion anymore. That's just people kind of saying the thing they like at the top of their lungs and hoping that other people give in and use it. I'm not 100% sure what the plan is. Yeah, there's a huge difference between like championing someone and giving negative feedback only. And I think that is very true, because the people who give me the harshest feedback are usually also the people who are like the most actively trying to help me move forward. And like I'll say, like, one of the people who gave me the best feedback, and by best I mean like crushing feedback, was Sarah Drasner. And nobody has done more for my career than Sarah Drasner. She fought to get me the VP job at Netlify. She hired me at Netlify. Since she's gone over to Google, she has made introductions. She's always got something kind to say. She supported my work. She shares my work. And all of that is being done in public. And in private, she will give me the like most brutal feedback when I do something that she thinks should be improved. And it's all done out of a willingness to make me the best version of myself, right? And I think that I think that like when you find somebody like that, that's such a gift, because that's somebody who they believe that you're capable of being more, right? Like, I don't give feedback to people who I don't think are going to change, or who I don't think have the potential to change. I give feedback to people who I think are going to make it. And I think it's really important to recognize that like when people take time to give you feedback, it's because they want you to be better. Unless, right? And this is where the discernment comes in. I do think there are people who use feedback as a way to make it seem like they want you to be better, but ultimately they're just trying to discourage you. And I don't have many of those people in my life, because as soon as I sense that that's the case, I just sort of shut it down. But I know, like I saw it going around on Twitter yesterday, somebody was talking, they posted a video of, or a couple screenshots of like a conversation with one of their friends, where they were like, oh, I sold a cake for $800. I'm going to throw a party when I sell one for $1,000. And the friend was like, I mean, 1,000 is not really that much, right? Like, are you sure you want to celebrate that? Like, just don't get disappointed when all your dreams get shattered. And it's like, holy crap, that's not feedback. That's just somebody being a dick, right? And so those types of friends are there. And I think that there is a certain amount of, if you see, like, there's that crabs in a bucket thing where, people will pull somebody down instead of helping them up. And I don't think that's as widespread as it gets made out to be. Like, everybody's trying to bring everybody around them down. But I do think that there's a sort of a knee-jerk reaction when somebody's doing something that you want to do, or that you think you could do, and you question whether or not you could do it better than the person who's doing it. And then your kind of knee-jerk reaction is to say, like, well, you're not doing it the way I would do it, right? And then you sort of instinctively start tearing them down. But ultimately, it's sort of a redirection of that, your own sense of like, well, why am I not doing this? Like, I'm seeing this person do this stuff, and I'm grumpy at them because I'm grumpy at me because I should have been doing that, right? And I think that that's a type of feedback that you don't need, and that's not valuable, and it won't help. It just makes you feel bad, and ultimately, you can if it's a close friend, talk to them about it, and if they don't change, then maybe don't seek out feedback, and maybe the friendship has run its course. I don't know. But it's I don't know. It's hard, and it's really sad, and I don't really know how to navigate it except to just sort of fade into the bushes when I find myself in those situations. I just kind of slowly pull back until I'm gone. So I don't know. Maybe that's not good. Learning which parts are worth being afraid of. Yeah, I think yes, that has made a huge, huge difference. Thor from Wish. How dare you? It wouldn't even be. What's the one below Wish? Temu? Thor from Temu. Yeah, growth. You have to push yourself outside of what you're capable of doing. My guiding rule has been what I know plus 10% is usually a good target for any project, because if I'm 90% sure I can do things, then I know that I can't catastrophically fail. I can do almost the entire project, and then the 10% is growth, where I'm able to take on something that sort of extends my skills and teaches me something new and lets me grow. And because it's only 10% of the project, if it's a 2-week sprint or whatever, that's a day. I can spend a day learning on the average 10-day project, right? And I think that's the sort of thing where I have enough confidence in myself to know that if there's one thing to learn, I can learn it. Where I've made the mistake in the past is by saying, I'm smart, I can figure stuff out, and then I take on a project that I have no idea how any of it works, and there's too much context to build. Learning 5 new things isn't just individually learning 5 new things, it's learning 5 new things and how each of them interacts with the other. And that's really complicated. It's really, it takes a lot of experience to understand how systems interact like that. And so adding more than one at a time is a huge risk that I've made many times. And in the agency days, I had to do refunds a couple times because I took a project that was so big and I got halfway into it and I was like, I'm not going to finish this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, if I build this, it's going to be so bad. And I just had to go back to the client and be like, I'm so sorry, but I got to refund you your money because I'm way over my head. And that is humiliating. And I never wanted to do that again. So that's where I kind of picked up my one new thing or 10% more than I know. And that's been good. Don't chase your dreams. Oh my God, that is such a good quote. Don't chase your dreams. Humans are persistent hunters or persistence hunters. I love that. So you don't have to run it down. You just have to wait until it gets tired. This is very funny, but also very true, because I have noticed that I'm usually not able to get things done through force of will. I'm usually able to get things done by just staying consistent until there's no choice, right? I'm a year and a half into Learn with Jason full time. I started Learn with Jason in 2018. And so 6 years later, I'm doing what I'm doing now, and I'm able to work with production crews. We're doing my little micro game shows, and we're working toward bigger things all the time. And each of those has felt like an inevitable step. And every time that I've tried to make a huge step, like when I tried to go from live streams to fully funded game shows, I can't chase that down, right? Like nobody wanted to be the first to make that move, but everybody will go a little bit further with me, right? It's kind of inevitable. Like they see what I've done, and I'm like, yeah, and if we did it with just this extra 10%, think about how much further it would go. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great, let's go. And so I've been able to ratchet up from me in my house with my one camera making things with other companies, tutorials, stuff like that, over the course of 6 years, slow step, slow step, slow step. And now I'm on, I just filmed the second episode of the Web Dev Challenge with a 3-person crew or 4-person crew, 4 devs that I flew in from all over the country or all over North America. And then I had, the sponsor came in. We were all here together in the studio working on I've got a 4-desk setup, lots of monitors. I've got multiple cameras where I'm working with editors. Like, I never would have guessed in 2018 that this is where I could have ended up. But to look at the steps that I took to get here, each one seemed inevitable. Like, it was the logical next step from where I was before, how we improve a little bit. So, yeah, persistent. This is one of those quotes that, like, it started out really funny, and now I'm like, oh man, this might describe my whole life. Don't take criticism from someone whose opinion you don't value. I think that's true, although I would say be careful about not valuing opinions that are inexperienced, because a lot of times I've gotten really good feedback because somebody didn't know how things work. And so I like the opinions I don't value are the people who I have known long enough to know that they're not doing the work and they're just grumpy. And the opinions, like I value everybody's opinion by default is maybe a good way to say that. Like, everybody can give good feedback. After you've gotten some feedback from somebody, you'll start to see whether or not that feedback is in good faith. And if they are giving you opinions that aren't coming from a place of experience or trying, then it's kind of, then now you've just got somebody who just kind of wants to be opinionated. And that, I don't care about that. So yeah. Let's see. How's your thought process going full time? So I think I talked about this sort of in the abstract just a second ago, but let me maybe give the short version. When I started Learn with Jason, I was at Gatsby. I had a hunch that I would want to keep doing this, and I didn't want it to be like a company property, so I explicitly figured out how to make sure I retained the intellectual property rights. So it was Learn with Jason, it was me, it was my vision, or my name, and then I did Gatsby content while on the show, and that was how we sort of reconciled. Like, I owned it, but it was for Gatsby. Like, I was going to make stuff to support them. So then when I left Gatsby, I kept it. I'd actually planned on going full-time after Gatsby, and I'm really glad I didn't. For several reasons. I mean, one, like, as I mentioned, I got recruited by Sarah Drasner, and like, when Sarah calls, you answer. But the other part of it was like, I'd only had a limited amount of experience at that point. I'd been doing one type of thing for one type of product. And had I gone independent, I think I would have been, first, I think I was too early to the market. I think that like 2019? I think 2019 was too early for what I'm doing now, because people were still getting great results from conferences and things like that. Then I was at Netlify and into the pandemic and all of that, and then I saw the landscape shift. And then I also got a chance to work in leadership, which that I think was probably the biggest shift for me strategically, was understanding. I got to see behind the curtain into what leadership rooms look like, and I got to realize that, the folks who are in leadership positions aren't magic. They're struggling with the same kind of stuff that we are, but they just have far more people depending on them, and so they have to do things in a way that's really cryptic and weird, because you can't say what's going on, because to say what's going on would panic one team that doesn't need to panic, but if you say something, it will cause them to panic. And then the other team, they need that context, but they can't have it because you can't panic the other team, right? So you have to say this stuff that's cryptic, or because I said so, or things like that, which gave me a lot of empathy for how companies have to communicate when they can't just be 100% transparent, because that's not how large groups of humans work. And I also got to see where they were most struggling, and like what leadership teams, because as part of Netlify's leadership team, I got to see inside other leadership teams as well. I was doing a lot of partnership work. I was meeting with other, other VPs and C levels and talking to them about how, like, what are you struggling with? What's working? What's happening? And they were all kind of giving me the same answers. Like, we don't know how to reach developers. We're having a hard time getting any of the initiatives that we have in-house to work. We're struggling to get people to pay attention and not just write us off as like bad developer marketing. Shit, that was the one problem I didn't have. I was like, okay, hold on, I think I got something here. And so when Netlify and I started drifting apart, I think goal-wise, around the same time that I left. I left in the end of 2022. And so I wanted to go all in on video, and it just wasn't part of the budget for Netlify. They didn't want to do it. So I decided I was going to break off and go independent because I believed that it was possible. And I had, at that point, Learn with Jason had built up enough sponsorship that I was able to replace most of my income from Netlify, not all of it. But I also had a couple people that I before I put in my notice at Netlify, I sent out a couple quick emails and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What does that sound like to you? And they were like, we're in, like, let's do something. So I had a couple contracts immediately lined up once my notice period was up at Netlify. And once I did that, and like the stuff that I did, honestly, was part of the risks and failures that I was talking about. I went and did, I did a fractional leadership role, and I wasn't very good at it. It turns out that's not like where I should be or what I should be doing, so I stopped offering that. I went and did some strategic stuff. I was good at that. Did some types of videos, and I thought, I don't know. You might remember my era of doing a bunch of. I did a bunch of work where I was making tutorials, and they just weren't like, I don't know. I don't think they were performing as well as they should have. I don't think that people were into them. I wasn't really into them, and I think you can feel it. And so I knew that was the wrong move. And then I just started like, okay, what do we do instead? And so I started kind of pivoting. And each of the things I tried was like a logical step toward where I am today. And ultimately, where I try to go, I think, is where the industry needs to be. And I'm still confident that I'm right, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes out. Let's see. A bit of writing advice I read a while ago was that someone reviewing a draft will point out where it doesn't work, and this is valuable, and they will offer suggestions for how to change to make it better, and this is usually worthless. Yes, absolutely. Man, Bridgewater, you've got great quotes today. Does what I've worked on make me happy? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think my whole career, maybe if I have like one secret weapon, I would say that it is, I have so much more fun than most people, I think. And what I mean by that is I don't know why I got lucky like this, but when I was a kid, I learned to enjoy the process of learning. And so every problem, doesn't matter the discipline or anything, is like a fun puzzle to solve, right? And so it doesn't matter what I'm working on. I'm just kind of having a good time trying to see if I can get the pieces to fit. So I think in my case, like right now, what I'm doing is I get to take this 20 years of code expertise. I've been building for the web since like 2003. And I get to combine all of that experience and everything I've done with this newer experience, my 5 years of making video. Well, a little bit longer, but like serious 5 years of making video for the web. And then I get to take my even smaller couple of years in leadership in tech. And I get to combine all of that into something that I've never seen before. And trying to figure out how to solve this puzzle where I have all these different skills and I want to grow each of those skills in different ways. I'm having more fun today than I've ever had. And what's great about that is that if I look at the graph of the amount of fun that I've had in my career, it has just gone up. The only dip was when I had my agency and I stayed in it too long. Because when I was in my agency, I was having fun, and then I stopped being able to do most things because I was only in admin and sales. And then I was working like 90-hour weeks and my health started to crash, and so I wasn't having fun anymore. And then I sold that agency and it's been up and to the right ever since. And I think that those sorts of, I don't know, but maybe it's an outlook thing. Like maybe I am just kind of an eternal optimist, or maybe I just had a great conversation with Maggie Appleton, which I'm going to link because not enough people have watched this, and I'm very sad that YouTube like didn't show this to anybody, and I'm kind of pissed about it, and I don't know how to make it. I don't know how to make it show it to people, so I'm just going to keep sharing this and trying to get what is happening. What just happened? There it is. This video here, you should all go watch it. And that's like the worst URL. Oh my God. Just go to the Learn with Jason site and look at the videos and watch the Maggie Appleton one. But here's the thing. What was I talking about? Oh shit, I was making such a good point, and then I wanted to bring in something that Maggie said, and now I'm lost. Oh no, we're in trouble, y'all. We're in trouble. Yeah, I think like what whatever. We're gonna look at the chat. If anybody remembers what I was gonna say, let me know. Let's see. I'm going through the chat here. Man, y'all are here today. I love it. Let's see. Get over the fear of. Don't overthink and just take the next step. I think yes, and because there's something to be said for like just give it a shot. I think there is such a thing as underthinking though, especially when it comes to risk, because if you don't give risk the respect it deserves, there is a chance that you can do damage that is hard to come back from. And I think a good example of that would be like if you're at work and you decide that you want to fix something that you think is broken in the code base and you just sort of YOLO commit it, the downstream risk of that could be that like somebody was working really hard on something in that code base that has now been destroyed, and now they feel super demotivated. The team feels like they weren't trusted because the stuff they were working on got blown away and replaced by somebody in a position of authority to do so. And now they're demoralized, or now the team doesn't really know how to work in this new code base. And so all that velocity gain that you thought you were going to get is now lost because you have to do so much retraining of everybody on the team to be able to work with it, right? So there's definitely like a right amount of thinking. And then there's a point, I think I mentioned this earlier, there's a point where it goes from like thinking through the problems to sort of role playing what might happen if things go wrong. And I think you want to catch that edge. There are things that you can predict, like how will this affect other people is a worthwhile thing to do. How will other people like this is now you're getting into like the role playing. And so I think being in the middle on that and making sure that you think about it enough to know what might go wrong or what the downsides might be, and make sure that those downsides are worth the potential upsides. And if those downsides affect other people, go through the process of talking to those other people and making sure that they agree that the upside is worth the trade-off. Like that's another thing about risk, especially if the thing you're going to do has impact outside of yourself, is making sure that you're really clear that I'm about to do something that's going to affect you, and I want you to be aware before I do it so that you don't get surprised, because that type of downside, it's really hard to get trust back if you go burn somebody's work down and don't tell them beforehand. I mean, the Netlify thing was really, that was a that was a bummer. I think the problem is that when you have a high performing team, the challenge becomes that like exceptional results get coded as default, and so any decline is seen as like catastrophic failure. And and this isn't just Netlify. I think this is a lot of companies that I've talked to. When you add VC into the mix, the expectations of venture capital funds are very unreasonable. You're expected to triple your business every year for the first 2 years, and then double it every year for the next 2 to 3 years. And like tripling business is not so bad when you're going from 0 ARR, but like when you hit, the 20 to 30 million ARR and they're like, okay, you need to be at 100 by the end of the year. That's absolutely like, come on, y'all. Like, sure, 1 in 1,000 companies might be able to pull that off, but like doubling is not a failure. Going from like, 10 to 20 million dollars in a year, that is no joke. And to the challenge that I've seen is that the boardroom will start to beat up leadership teams if they're only doubling when they're supposed to be tripling. And the unfortunate side of that is that when you put a leadership team on its back foot and they start worrying about whether or not they're going to get replaced by the board, they start to play scared. And I've never seen anybody win when they were playing scared. And I think that, I've seen this in a handful of different companies, and I expect that we're going to see it in more, because some of the companies that are raising now or raised recently are about to enter that arena where now they're going to start getting beat up by the board. And who knows? Who knows what happens? But I don't know. That it bums me out because I think that a lot of good companies that would have grown steadily forever get destroyed by the impatience of a VC board. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Oh my God. You worked with me. Truby's was my very first job when I was like 14 years old. Who is this? Who are we talking to right now? This is amazing. Yeah, 2003 cannot be 20 years ago. I think that often. Do I have writing a book on the bucket list? What kind of book? So if we're talking about just like completing a book, I've actually done that. I wrote 3 books on PHP and jQuery and real-time PHP apps back in like 2009, 2012 and 2013, something like that. Like those were my PHP days when I was like a WordPress. That was my agency days. But I don't know. Luigi plays scared in his haunted mansion and he always wins. All right, well, the exception proves the rule, though, Alex. Like, let's be serious here. Slow and steady wins the race. Ryan, dude, yes, amazing. I love that. It's so that's so cool. What a crew that was. That was a good time. That was still my favorite job. Like, I loved that. It was just a good small town restaurant. Got to do fun stuff with low pressure. Miss that. Bridgewater, why would you say that, dude? Come on. You know what the worst part about that is that that's the year I graduated high school. And so now people who were born after I graduated high school are legal to drink in the United States. That hurts. It hurts. Anyways. I was talking about having fun. Okay, I was talking about having fun, and I was talking about how my career has a kind of advanced, sort of built on fun, right? And here, the reason I brought up Maggie Appleton is because in that conversation, she talks about sort of the same thing, like how her career, it doesn't really fit in a box. And it doesn't fit in a box because she has a tendency to sort of do a thing until she notices something that would be more rewarding to learn, and then she kind of follows that thing. And it's led to her being so many different jobs, right? Like she's been an illustrator, she's been a product manager, she's been a designer, an engineer. She's now working on creative, what is it? Design engineer is the title that she's starting to lean on right now. And then she's been thinking, more and more about what comes next. I've had a very similar progression, and when I talked to her about it, so much of it was about just the sort of joy of what can I do, what can I accomplish, and that's very parallel to the way that I think about and approach my career. Is like I can just try stuff and I can just do it, and if it's fun, I can keep doing it, and if it's not fun, I can stop doing it. And in all of these cases, like I have skills that I can use to help people. And even if my job title isn't developer, I still know how to develop. Even if my job title isn't VP of developer experience, I still know how developer experience works. I still know how to run a team if I need to. All of those skills don't go away because you change your job title. And so it sort of leads to you become something unique. You are your own thing. You have a set of skills that are sort of yours, right? And that's not to say that other people can't do the things that you can do, but it's more to say that you are able to do things in a way that is uniquely you, because you are able to combine a different set of skills in a way that nobody else does. And I think that's, to me, that's what makes this stuff special, is embracing the idea of learning things, adding skills, building a pile of competencies, and just trying to make sure that the things that you're doing all bring you a little bit of joy. Because I don't know, I feel like I've talked about this on the stream before, but there's not really like an objective measure of success. There's only one subjective measure, and that's yours. If you feel like you did something worthwhile, you did, right? And at the end of the day, or I guess at the end of your life, you're gonna die. Nobody cares. Like it doesn't matter what you did. The only thing that matters is that when you're on your deathbed, you look back and you go, yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. So if that's the measure, then why not just optimize for having fun, for learning, for doing things that are challenging in the good way, for building up as many skills as we can. There's this concept, we talked about it in Maggie's episode actually, but it got cut for time, of the adjacent possible. So what the adjacent possible is this idea that you can't jump from like one concept to a concept that is far advanced. So for example, you can't jump from inventing the wheel to inventing a jet engine. You have to do a bunch of stuff in between. And so a way to visualize this is thinking about your life as a series of doors. So you're currently standing in a room, and all around you are doors. Now, any one of those doors that you open is a skill. You learn a thing, you try a thing, something. And by opening that door, you gain access to a new room full of new doors, right? And if you want to get from a wheel to the jet engine, you have to go through a whole series of doors that say, the axle, the wheelbarrow, moving on to, then you get into combustion engines, you get into aerodynamics, you get into the manufacturing of steel, all these different things that let you open all these doors that eventually open the door that has a jet engine behind it. Now, if you take a really linear approach to life and you say, I have this job, what I want is this job, and that's, say, I don't know, CTO. Like if I'm a junior software engineer and I say I want to be a CTO, I know that there are doors that I need to open along the path to get me there. But if I'm only optimizing for that one thing and I have no willingness to sort of explore outside, then I'm automatically barricading a lot of doors that maybe would have brought me a lot of joy. There are a lot of things that I could have known or could have done that would have made me happy and wouldn't have, like, you don't have to close a door to open another one. You can open them all, right? And so when I start thinking about my approach, I think my approach has been, let's open as many doors as possible. Like, there's not really anything that I don't want to know. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of fun to learn. So even if it's not relevant, even if it's not something that I think I would use, I still kind of want to learn it because it's fun to know stuff. It's fun to learn things, and it's fun to watch a dot connect in your brain where you go from unable to do it to able to do it. That's a really fun experience. And every time I've opened doors, what I found is it's very rare that opening a door doesn't have some kind of crossover effect elsewhere in my tree, right? Like, I've opened all these doors, and maybe all the way over here, I did something like, I don't know, when I was in a band, I got up on stage and performed in front of strangers. Now, that might feel irrelevant to a career in tech, but all the way over here, I'm up on stage telling stories to strangers at conferences, right? Or I'm right here in front of you telling a story and not panicking or having stage fright or stammering. Not stammering much, at least. And that is all, like, this experience is paying me over here because it taught me something that I can reapply over here. And that's one of a million examples throughout my life of me learning a thing that allowed me to apply a skill in a different place, in a different area, that's had a big benefit for me. So I don't know, open as many doors as you can. I think that is a very good way to kind of approach this and to think about all of it. Maggie is, in fact, one of the most talented people on the planet. And I would say that she is because she has zero fear about just trying stuff. She just wades headlong into a problem and then kind of thinks about it and shares what she's learning. And that's the other thing, is she shares what she's learning. Like, she's so good at, I'm in this new area. I have no idea what's going on. Here's this breadcrumb trail of blog posts that are barely formed. Like, she even has a characterization on her blog where she's got things that are like, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's like a seedling and a sprout and a like tree, something to indicate that something is like just the bare basis of an idea, and it kind of graduates up to a full-blown article with citations and all the things that she wants it to have. She leaves this trail of just bare ideas where a lot of times it's almost like a note to self. Tried this, didn't work, need to read this. And for somebody who's following along, maybe that's not super useful, but it is really interesting because you can see the dots connect and you can see the expertise grow in a way that's really rare to be able to see in someone else. I think the only equivalent that I've ever seen is like watching a kid learn something, where you're around them while they're practicing, and so you can kind of see their skill grow over time. But that is doing things while working with amazing people makes it easier. 1,000% yes. Like, if you can find a group that is into it, like, I don't know, like, they don't necessarily need to be into the same things that you are. I don't buy into the idea that support means a group of people who have the same job or the same interests, but rather that have the same attitude, if that makes sense. Like, people who approach things with the same general outlook, and therefore can support people who have that outlook, is, I think, maybe the way that I would say that. But I think that's a lot of the support network I've been trying to build for myself. The people that I spend the most time with, the people that I hang out with, are the people who just want to do stuff. Like, they're in it because it's fun to be in it. Like, learning is fun. They're not competitive. They're not worried about what their other folks are doing. They're not worried about what their competitor businesses are doing. They're literally just thinking about, like, what's the coolest thing we could build. And that's really, like, that's who I want to be around all the time, because it makes me want to be like that. And I think that's a big thing. Why does somebody want to become a CTO? I think, like, sometimes, so there are a lot of reasons why somebody would want that job. And I think that some of them are valid and some of them are less so. I think that sometimes people will, early in their career, they'll just set a target, and they'll kind of pick one arbitrarily when they're 19 in college. They say, I want to be the CEO of a company. And, you know, they're 19, they're in college for finance, so they say, I'm going to be the CEO of a multinational bank. Is that what they actually want? Who's to say, right? Like, they don't actually know what it's like to run that, to work in one of those companies, to run one of those companies. They just sort of, like, they picked a target. They're calling their shot because they're young, they're ambitious, they know where they want to, they think they know where they want to go, and so they set themselves on a trail. And I think that that is fine, unless it leads to sort of putting on the blinders so that you can't see anything else that's going on, and you're, like, unwilling to explore alternative options because you said I'm going to be this, and then you know your consistency bias is saying, like, well, because I said it, I'm going to do it, even if you don't want it. And I think that maybe is one way that people decide they want to be a CTO, is just that sort of, like, I'm calling my shot. I'm going to be an engineer, and I'm going to be the best engineer, which means I have to be a CTO. And fine, if that's what you want, whatever. I would encourage people in that situation to sort of look around at, like, what actually makes them happy, and make sure that their intentions, that their values are in line with what they're actually getting themselves into. Because I think a lot of people think that a CTO is a different job, like some kind of, you know, tons of free time, gets to tinker with the coolest tech. And maybe that can be what the CTO is. I know that there are some companies where that's how they treat the CTO's office. But most of them, it's not. It's a very intense engineering management role with lots of budgets and lots of meetings and lots of travel for senior leadership team meetings. And that actually makes a lot of engineering types super miserable, right? Other reasons that you would want to be CTO is that you are, in fact, an excellent engineering manager, and you realize that you have the ability to make engineers productive and to feel supported and to work together, and you know that you could scale that, right? That's a great reason to be a CTO, because you've, through your explorations, realized that this is a skill set and it's something that you can offer, that you would be uniquely good at, and so you seek out the role that matches your skill set. Then I also think, like, a lot of times founders will take the CTO role because they don't want to lose leadership, but they really don't want to be a CEO, because being a CEO is a very hard, thankless job that doesn't allow for any coding. And, like, for many founders in Silicon Valley, they're engineers, they're developers, they want to code. And when they're early as a CEO, you can code. When you get above 25, 50 people, if you're coding, you're kind of screwing up as a CEO. So sometimes they'll take that sidestep. They'll hire an executive to be the CEO, and they'll take the CTO job, because that allows them to stay in the tech a little bit more. That's another completely valid reason to want to be a CTO. So all of them are valid reasons. I'm those, like, 3 examples. I'm sure there's 1,000 others that of, like, how and why people became CTOs. But ultimately, I think, you know, my point was more about the value of trying not to call your shot before you are within sight of it, if that makes sense. Because there's so much stuff you're going to see in between where you are and where you want to go, that keeping that optionality and being able to sort of explore doesn't preclude you from becoming a CTO eventually, but it allows you to have some experiences along the way that honestly will probably make you a better CTO in the end, or it'll show you that there's something you wanted more. Let's see. A remix hoodie, yes. I love this outfit in particular. Makes me really happy because it's like the remix hoodie has every color in the world, so you can wear something colorful with it and it feels color coordinated. Yeah, let me find Maggie's blog. It is maggieappleton.com. Get that up on the screen. And the garden specifically is the like where everything is. And then I think if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the site, she has something called a colophon. And down here, there's a section called growth stages. So if you look at the growth stages on Maggie's site, you'll kind of get it. Seedlings, buddings, and evergreens, which is, I think, great. Anyways, I really like the way she does this stuff. It's very, very thorough, very clearly articulated. Let's see. Now that you've reached principal, there's nowhere to go but down. See, but that's where I would disagree, because I reached principal and then I just went left and now I'm here. And so I think that, somebody was talking about tech trees the other day, and in certain types of games like StarCraft and stuff, there's this idea of like tech trees. And so you start out by inventing a thing, and then you earn points or however it works, and then you can spend those points to like advance down the tech tree. And depending on who's playing the game, they're going to optimize for different things. So the tech tree might be in like war games like StarCraft, you have more powerful weapons, or it might be that you have more powerful armor so that you can take more damage, or it might be that you have higher production capacity so that you can make more food, or you can support more people, which would allow you to build, more buildings. There's a lot of different ways that you can go. But the idea is that there's sort of like these different trees, and all of them branch off. They don't typically connect, and they all end with like whatever the highest level of advancement is. And if you think about your life as a tech tree, if you have sort of, there were all these options at the beginning, and you followed this one, and this took you to principal, then that doesn't mean that you can't pursue one of these. You won't lose this progress. You're still a principal. But if you start going down this route, maybe you get really good at product, maybe you get really good at design, maybe you get really good at running a team, who knows? But each of those things then makes you so much stronger, because now you're advancing on multiple planes. And that combination of skills has unique value that two people with the same tree completed technically have the same skills. They've learned the same things. They are the same type of expertise. So then what differentiates them? What differentiates them is all the stuff that's not in the tree. It's all the stuff that they know that they can combine in. Like if I'm talking to two people who are principal engineer. Well, now I'm going to be careful about how I say this, because this is a rabbit hole that I could spend all day in. But two people who have a principal engineer skill set, or an engineering skill set, so to speak. They know everything about code, build really complex systems. They can, they're architects. They can build reusable systems. They can think through APIs. All the things you would expect from a principal. How do you choose which one you're going to hire? Because they can both do the job identically. So then it starts to get into like, well, what else do they bring to the table? Is one of them an excellent communicator, like can really talk to the product team because they know enough about product that they are able to, articulate why is a product valuable? What are the words that the product team will use that they can translate engineering needs into product terminology, so that they're not asking the product team to just trust them that it's good engineering. Have they maybe had a little experience with like C-level, and they can manage up? They can articulate to a CTO or a CFO why a particular initiative is going to work, and it's going to make, in the CFO's case, why it's going to bring down COGS and improve their velocity and decrease turnover, which helps them save 15% on headcount spend every year. I don't know, that principle's pretty damn compelling to a C-level, right? And so each of those things is like an additional bonus for the person who has completed one skill tree, and then you can kind of move into additional skill trees to augment yourself and make you even stronger, right? And the way that I like my adjacent possible thing Just open as many doors as possible. Because if you open all the doors, then theoretically you have become complete. You are perfect. You know everything. Now, clearly, that'll never happen. But there is something fun about throwing open as many doors as you can. And like, let's see, we got a limited amount of time on this planet. How close to perfect can we get? Right? It's a speed run any percent, but like I'm going for highest percent. Yeah, max out the CSS tech tree. So, I mean, obviously there's more tech trees. Like you could go way down the JavaScript rabbit hole and become the ultimate front of the front engineer with like middle end capacity or I don't know, something. Or you can just go in a completely different direction and like become the world's best CSS illustrator. Who's to say, right? Million ways you could go. Let's see. Any tips on how to learn topics that trigger anxiety because you've always been convinced that you can't do it or had trouble understanding the topic? I don't know, because this is something that I was very young when I got pushed past this hump. And I guess the short answer, I don't know if I got taught in the best way. I basically didn't get given an option. The way that I was taught as a child is that my dad would give me a task, and then he would just patiently sit there and while I kicked and screamed until I did it. And the only way for me to get out was the only way out was through, right? So maybe a little rough, but at the same time, it also taught me that like avoiding problems doesn't make a problem go away. It just makes it a bigger problem later. And so I, at some point, just embraced that like the discomfort of being bad at something is far easier than the discomfort of failing later because of something that I could have learned. So I think what I do know is that if you're moving into something that's immediately adjacent, it's easier than going into something that's like completely across the way. So for example, if like I was always really into English in general. Like I took every English elective that I could, and I was in the advanced writing classes and the advanced literature classes and all that stuff in high school. And so for me, stuff that was writing related always felt less daunting because it was the thing that I was most into. So then stuff like science, like biology, when you get into chemicals and you know, elements and stuff like that, I know a lot less about that. It was never really my interest. It was never something that I did much with. So for me to jump right into like heavy science papers, I'm at sea. Like I can't read mathematical notation or anything like that. And so sometimes when I dive into those papers, I feel really, really lost. But there are ways that you can try to find something that's like in between. So one of the things I've loved is finding books, which I love, that are written by good writers about topics that I don't feel super comfortable with, like deep math. A good one is like a good example for somebody who likes words and doesn't like math. There's a book called How Not to Be Wrong. And this book is really well written, but it's also about math. And so it taught me some things about like statistics and like the traveling salesman problem and like how you calculate that, like all these interesting things told in math, but in a way that was more familiar to like my competencies of written word. So I think trying to move the problem to where you're learning something that's more adjacent and you can sort of graduate toward it. Because after reading a book like this, I felt a little bit less intimidated by taking on some more just straight up statistics writing. I'm still not super comfortable in there, and it would take me a little more practice to be like, yes, I can read this research paper about math. But it's not as daunting as it was because I took one step in that direction using a book. Did I share this book here? Put it up on the screen. So these types of things, I think, figuring out where like which areas of skill have the greatest Venn diagram overlap with the thing you want to learn, or if there's no overlap, what's something that has overlap with the two things you're trying to learn. So, if I'm trying to learn something about, I don't know, aerodynamics, I don't know much about that. So maybe I could find like hard sci-fi where it's about that. So I like the story, right? And along the way, they're going to explain some stuff about how these things work. I feel like that is maybe a flawed way to do it, because I think sometimes hard sci-fi takes some liberties, and because I don't know anything, I don't know what's fake and what's not. But what I've noticed is that, like, when I read The Martian, for example, that had a lot of like hard sci-fi stuff. And then when my wife, who's really into research papers, will start explaining how like mycelial networks and shit work, I still don't understand what she's talking about, but I understand more because I've read hard sci-fi books where they talk about how that sort of stuff functions, and I've heard those terms before. I'm not like at sea in jargon that I'd never heard before. So I think that if you can find ways to sort of expand into adjacent areas that move toward things that intimidate you, you start to get you kind of get like immersed in the jargon. And because the hardest part about learning something that's net new is that you not only have to understand the concepts, but you have to learn the language. And like the symbols and jargon that's in mathematics or in chemistry or in statistics, or like just like the Latin names for plants and stuff. Like it is hard because it's completely unfamiliar to me. And so something that I might fully understand, when it gets written in mathematical notation, I have no idea what it means. Somebody was putting a thing on Twitter yesterday, like a couple days ago, that said like, oh, if you know what these symbols are, these are actually just for loops. And I was like, well, why don't you just show me a fucking for loop then? But so basically, like, you have to learn the language and then you can learn the concepts. And so if you can find ways to edge into the jargon that make you feel more comfortable with it, then when you get to the concepts, you don't get tripped up by the jargon as quickly. I think this is the same idea behind like immersion learning in language. If you go spend time in a country, you're just in a soup of that language all the time. And so much of what you're hearing is that language used in the context and the culture where that language is home. And so you start to pick up on things even subconsciously before you understand them, which makes it easier when you're doing active study to then, you study a word and then you hear that word get used outside when you leave the classroom. And then you study a phrase or a tense, and then you go outside and you hear people use it. And so you kind of have this immersion of like, you're getting cultural clues, you're getting comfortable just hearing it day to day. And then you also take the study, which is then reinforced when you go back out into the world and you're just surrounded by the thing. So immersion is really helpful if that's possible. It's not always, but I have found that like I learned Spanish way faster in the 3 to 6 months that I was in Spain than in the 3 years of high school Spanish that I took. Like I kind of knew it, but I didn't retain much. In Spain, I didn't finish learning Spanish. I'm far from fluent, but I went from being able to basically say like hello, yes, no, thank you, sorry, to being able to, at one point we needed to get somebody who was having we were worried they were having a heart attack. They weren't, but we had to get them into a cab and then get them to a hospital. And I couldn't speak Spanish, but I could speak enough Spanish words to give the driver a clue about what was going on. And I got us to the hospital. That was cool. And I was super intimidated by learning new language. I'm still intimidated by learning new languages, but I found that, if you get that opportunity to be fully immersed in it, it's not easy, but it's much easier than trying to just like do hard study like me alone doing Duolingo with no reinforcement outside of that. How did you know my weakness? I think a lot of us are intimidated by math. I'm still very intimidated by math. Science videos on YouTube that explain that kind of stuff. Yeah, like Veritasium is really, really good for this, where they'll go into something like kind of off the wall, but it gives you just a little bit of vocabulary, a little bit of understanding about how physics works. And then you're like, wow, like that actually, I get that. I understood what that meant. And then later, when somebody talks about something else, you're not going in completely clueless. Like you don't know how most of physics works, but you can explain the Coriolis effect now. Great, look at me. I'm like 1% better than I was yesterday. You watch enough of those, you start to have like a baseline understanding where, again, you're not an expert, but you can at least, you're at least not lost when people start talking about it. And I think that's the special. Do I know Catalan? No. I struggled so hard in Barcelona because so for folks who don't know, in Barcelona, they speak Spanish and Catalan. And so Catalan is like, Catalunya is a region that was like annexed by Spain at some point. And there's a sense of like, there's a large group of people who believe that Catalan should be independent, and they speak Catalan and they fly the Catalan flag. And so Spanish and Catalan are both spoken, and there's a sort of like we ran into a bit of an unwillingness to speak Spanish. People wanted to speak Catalan, but I didn't know Spanish well enough, and the Barcelona accent, the Spanish accent, I wasn't familiar with it because I learned Spanish from Mexico, right? Like Mexican Spanish, and so the accent is different, and so my experience was sometimes people would be speaking to me, and I wasn't sure if I just wasn't understanding the sentence or if they were speaking a different language. And oftentimes I didn't get to find out. I would just try to respond in Spanish and get like basically booted out of the restaurant. But it was fine. It was fine. But Catalan is difficult. It's like, I don't know. It was really interesting. It kind of felt like Latin because there's a lot of like X's and stuff in it, and it just kind of, it's an interesting language. It's a cool language, but I never learned it. What's up, Fuzzy? How you doing? Costello's. I've been to Costello's. I used to live over there. Daily groups of foreign language speakers. That's cool. There's another cafe near me that does that too, where they'll post up that like they're gonna do a German immersion day, and it's you go to the table, and if you're sitting at the table, you have to speak German. I love that stuff. Like it's super useful. And I think like if I ever decide that I'm gonna like fully learn French or something, I think the way I'm gonna do it is I'm going to get somebody to tutor me, and then probably there's services where you can just hire somebody to have conversations with you in the language you're trying to learn, and then they know enough that they can like coach you when you get lost. So that would be, I think, a really good way to do it, is just kind of force yourself to force your brain to work in that mode. And again, that's the sort of immersion. All right. So we are a little over halfway through the allotted time, and I think I'm going to transition over and let's write a little code. So let me set up a couple things here. We're going to take this down, and I'm going to, what do we want to work on? Let's work on, you know what I want to try? Let's try to get auth in Astro with Clerk. I've been meaning to try this. There's a new package from the Clerk team that is supposed to work with Astro. I tried it, but I tried it on an existing project, and I ran into some issues that I don't think were with the package. I think it was me not quite understanding what was going on. So let's try it on a clean project. And oh man, I'm so happy to hear that, Fuzzy. That's great. I gave a talk at CityJS London. I'm going to give this talk again at Cascadia JS for anybody who is in the Seattle area, wants to come out. I think they've also got virtual tickets if you want to watch. But yeah. Let's see. All right, let's do this. I'm going to take us over to this screen here. I'm going to share my screen. And let's go entire screen. And then I want to hang out in that view. All right. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to create a new project. Actually, how do I want to do this? Yeah, so I'm going to go up here. Going to npm create astro at latest. And we're going to call this astro auth clerk. Let's just go empty. I'm going to write TypeScript. Yes, yes, yes. All right. And so then, wait, did I just type a key? Yeah, you get out of here. Then we're going to open, and we're going to open up this one. All right, so some basics here. We've got the, you know, just the standard like single file thing. There's not really anything else going on in here. It's a nice empty basic project, which is exactly what I want. So then we're going to head over to this is the project. It's Pantelis made this. And so let's give this a shot. Oh wait, is this the package or is this like a proof of concept? Here it is, okay. No, wait. Learn how Astro works, explore the official docs. Okay. No, hold on, this doesn't feel right. This isn't the right project. I'm gonna go back to Pantelis's code here. Is this the one that I... Oh no, this is the right one. Okay. I'm doing the right thing here. So let's go see if there's official docs here, because I think there are. Yes. There we go. Okay. All right. So we're gonna do it this way. I'm gonna use the node adapter because that's kind of what it's tested for. And then if we get it running properly in time, I want to see if we can also switch it over to. I'm gonna try the Netlify adapter because that's where I deploy. And if we can get that running, then it should work in any serverless environment. So then we're going to take some of these. Oh, the Vinnies are going to be excited because we're about to do some environment variables. .env.local. And so we'll get publishable keys, clerk sign in URL, sign up URL. So we'll keep those the same. So then I'm going to go get these off of my clerk dashboard. And I can't remember if they hide these by default, so I'm going to go ahead and hide this screen here. There they are. There's the Vinnies. So we're going to go just hide my screen for a second while I grab these. Oh, perfect. They actually don't show it. So let me pull this back up for a second. So this is what it looks like. I'm on the API keys page of Clerk here, and they kind of show you everything that you need. So you can go through whichever one. And then this is the different setups that you would need. So in my case, I want the node one. So I'm just going to use the next one, and then I'll edit this to not be that URL, or to that environment variable name. So back over in here. So we've got this one goes here, and then the clerk secret key goes there, and I'm going to close that and back to here. All right, so no API keys for you. Oh, nice. You got this. You got this built. Cool. All right. So back to the docs here. We extend the types. Okay, I can do that. So into the env.d.ts. Oh, just needed the one. Okay. And then the integration. All right, so we're going into our astro.config. In fact, why don't I pull these together for now? We'll go side by side here. All right, so let's open up the Astro config, and then in here, we'll set up the integrations, and we're gonna add clerk, which it looks like isn't. Yeah, why don't we just grab these like that, and then we're gonna do clerk, and then down here, we're gonna set this up into server mode, and then down below we need to set an adapter, and our adapter is going to be node, and we want the mode to be standalone. All right, so that's our setup. Matches here, we've got clerk, we've got output server, we've got node standalone as our adapter, which is just saying that we're going to be able to run this on any old node server. Next, we're going to set up middleware, and I don't think this one has any middleware, so we're going to have to create it. And that goes into our source page. All right, and then inside, I'm going to actually do this longhand so that I can talk through more for myself than anybody else what's going on. Astro clerk auth. Okay, and then we want the /server. Okay, so now I should be able to get the, what are you, stop helping. Clerk, middle, thank you for, I gotta figure out how to make that less annoying. Create route matcher. Okay. And then I'll just have this wrap for now. It's annoying, but then I can at least see what's going on. Then we're going to const is protected page, and that's going to be create route matcher, and oh, so we just define any old page here, or any old regex for what our pages are. And that needed to be in quotes. Okay. Then we do the middleware stuff. So on request, we're going to run the clerk middleware. And that gets auth, context, and our next action. And we can say if it is a protected page, based on the request. Nope, request. And we are not authed. Then we're going to return auth redirect to sign in. Okay. Otherwise, we just pass through the request as is because they have a valid session. All right, so that's going to be our middleware. Then what? We go into our components here, So we're going to open up index.astro. In fact, why don't we take this bit here and let's go create a layout. So we'll go with layouts default.astro. Drop this in here, and then this is going to become a slot. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to make copy pasting things like this much easier. And so in here, then we can import the layout from layouts default and take all of this, make it a layout. Okay, so now that's mostly functional. Then we can bring in signed in, comes out of components control. Okay. Then we have the user button, and that comes out of interactive. And if they're signed out, then we show the sign in, which comes out of the interactive components. Okay. Routing is going to be hash. All right, so we'll have to look at what that does. Okay, so then this should let us sign in and out. And then if I go to my pages, let's create, hold on, what was that path? Any user path. So let's go with user, and we'll start with an index.astro. And we'll just do layout. And then I'm going to copy this bit here. Here. And then we need to pull that one in. And that one. Okay, so theoretically speaking, now we have a user dashboard and a home page. And if I go to my other index, actually, why don't I go to my layout? And up here, we'll just do a header. We'll say my site, that'll take us home. And then we'll have a nav, which will be dashboard. That needs to be user dashboard. Okay, so if I did all that correctly, then when I start this site, right, we're going to go to localhost 4321. We get a sign in. And if I go to dashboard, oh, we need our sign in pages. Okay. So, but that's good because it didn't show the thing. So let's log in. I need to sign up. Oh, we're going to have to build that as well. What if I just do the thing? I'm going to okay, then I go to dashboard. Oh, because it's not, that's the user dashboard. Okay, so then, so that goes to the right place, this goes to the right place. And if I log out, and I try to go to the dashboard, it takes us to that sign in page. So that, in a nutshell, is a protected, like the thingy. It did the thingy. Let's see. Turned off Copilot. You know, I don't even have, this isn't Copilot. This is like the various extensions I have all trying to help. But yeah, definitely rough. So let's see what else we got here. Have I ever explored algo trading? No, that's not really my vibe. So you know what else I want to do is I want to look at Vinny's implementation here, because I just want to see, we can also peek under the hood of what Pantelis did. All right, let's go full screen here. My Burrito has an updated version. All right, so we've got middleware pulling in pieces there. So protected APIs. We got clerk stuff. Define middleware, clerk client, authenticate request. Cool. Yeah, okay, cool. So same general vibe there. And same thing for the pages here. So it looks like what Pantelis did is sort of abstract this piece into the single call with the matcher. Nice, okay. Then what else we got here? We got auth, sign in button. Oh, and you just like built this. Is this the clerk? Yeah, okay, so cool. So we've got like the clerk.js SDK going, which I would guess this is what it looks like under the hood of Pantelis' stuff too. So let's go look at, what's Burrito doing? Probably the same general vibe would be my guess. Yeah, same general vibe. So we've got the like a route matcher kind of deal. We've got the sign in check. Good, and then in the components, we've got more or less the same setup. Cool, very cool. Yeah, so I think this is good. This is a cool way to look at it. Let's look at what's. Is there anything else I'm supposed to do? That's it. So that's the rest of the thing, and then we've got Pantelis' repo here. I see what I did wrong. I was looking at like the parent package instead of the smaller package. So that's got it. All right. So then in here we've got our source. We've got our. Wait, there's a lot going on in here. What is this? AstroClerk auth. The client. Oh, there's all sorts of React stuff. Control. Okay, so here's our control components. Signed in. Oh, they put it in the locals. Cool. Where's that at, though? Clerk middleware. So we got our Astro stuff. Checking everything. Where do the locals get? Just decorate Astro local. And then we end up with multi-domain. God damn, they did everything in here. Nice work, Pantelis. Glad I didn't have to build this. Okay, so there's a lot going on in here, and so if I didn't mention this earlier, Pentelis is actually on the Clerk team, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that they know about what's going on behind the scenes in Clerk that most of us don't, and ideally shouldn't. That's the reason we're reaching for something like Clerk. And so looks like the way that Pentelis has handled this is extremely thorough, and that's dope. It's very dope. Studio's getting busy right now. There's a bunch of people in here. I don't know if you can hear the background conversations. Let's see here. So then we've got context redirect. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on in here. I don't think I'm going to be able to, like, without pretty dedicated inquiry here, figure out how this actually works. But I think the short version is it's doing what Vinny's project did. With a bunch of extra Clerk safety in there. And it also looked like there was some stuff around, like I saw some next stuff in there. So it looks like maybe there's some core things that are being done that, so there might be some abstractions that we're not, that I didn't untangle. So basically, though, this is pretty neat because it means we've got these sites kind of just set up to function now, right? So then we can take this a little bit further. Let's see how we would do this in like a real project, right? Like how would I want to do this? So I would want this to actually live in my nav. So I'd like pull this out. And I don't want it to be the sign in, I want it to be the sign in button. Let's do this. Let's get you in from control. Let's get you in from interactive. And then I want you in from control. And you I don't think I want, actually. Is there not like a sign in button? What are my options in here? Oh, we're just pulling things in directly now? Come on now. No, that's not what we're doing. I'm gonna do one of these. Whoa. One of these. And we're gonna get rid of that one, get rid of this bit here. Okay, and then you here. And then do I get a sign in? I don't get a sign in button. So how do I just link to the sign in? So let's go back here and let's look for the Astro components. Signed in, signed out. User button. Let's see. So the sign up URL is the piece that I want. Because I don't want this to, I don't want it to be a sign in, I want it to be a sign in button. Like I want it to, well, actually, you know what? The way I can do it then is we can have that show up on, so we'll just turn this part off, in fact, and instead what we'll do is go to the sign-in page. Okay, so then we have our sign-in, sign-up. Okay, so then we need our actual sign-in pages. So let's create signin.astro. And in this one, I'll take this. And I think what we probably want to do here, what? local declaration. There is no local declaration. Oh, this is the local. Oh, crap. Okay. So we can do it like that. Whoa. Clerk sign in. Fine. And then the other thing that I'd probably want to do here. What? I just want you to move up. Just be in order. Okay. So then I have my sign in, sign out. But what I want also is I'd want to probably update my middleware to say that if you try to go to the sign in page, is protected page, and then like is sign in page would be create route matcher, and then would I do import meta env, what was that called? Sign in URL. So there's sign in and sign up, and that maybe I want those to be the same thing. Do they need to be the same thing? That's probably fine. And then down here, we'll say if is sign in page context.request, and you are logged in, right? Then what we want to do is actually redirect to the dashboard page because you're already signed in, right? So that way, if you try to like auto nav to it or something, and we'll give this a shot. So here's our sign in page. So I will sign in. Okay, so that takes me in. And then if I try to go to my sign in page again, it automatically takes me here. Okay, good. So then we can go into our user page, and we'll take out that button because we've already got it in the nav now. Then we can go to the home page, and we can also take out this part because it's already in the nav now, and that's already in the nav now. Okay, so we've got our home, we've got our dashboard. Look at us go, chat. And then we've got the ability to manage our account and stuff. Oh, nice, you can do, cool. All right, so that's cool, so we can do that. Got email addresses. Reconnect your account, that's fine. That's because we're in dev mode. I think in dev mode it won't do refresh tokens or something. I'll have to go actually set things up if I want to do that. But oh, get Nate Moore to do awesome CLIs. That could be fun. Yeah, that is not a bad idea. So Learn with Jason is going to be spotty over the summer because I have, starting next week, I think I am traveling until July. So, yeah, I'm at Cascadia. I'm going to one with Marissa called Edge Esmeralda, which is like an urban planning kind of thing. I'll be at DevRelCon New York, might show up a couple other places, who's to say. So yeah, busy, busy, busy. Have I announced the next 4Devs contest? Not yet. So that's coming soon. The first episode that we shot took a little bit longer to edit because it was the first time we'd ever done it. It's pretty close. I'm hopeful that we will get that launched within the next week or so. and then the contest. So we'll announce the winner of the previous contest, as well as launching the next contest once the episode goes live. I didn't want to like announce a contest and then launch the episode and close the other contest, and the other contest is still open. So I just want to we're gonna get. I'm aiming for a 3-week turnaround on episodes. So, and that's pretty good for, I think, the contest. So we'll be record the episode, announce the contest, 2 weeks, and then notify winners, get everything kind of organized for the announcement, and then close the contest, launch the episode, announce winners, and then have the next episode filming right about then. So that way we'll have the intention is to do about 1 contest a month going forward. And in fun news, I'm very, very close to getting a unique, like a new kind of sponsorship for those, which will allow us to do things that aren't like, it'll still be sponsored, but it won't be like you have to use the specific sponsor tool. It's going to be more like, I want to be able to do challenges like build a landing page, an animated landing page, but you don't get to use JavaScript, right? I think that would be a really, really fun challenge. And it would also allow me to bring in some of my friends like Lynn Fisher and Tim Holman and some of these Cassie Evans, like some of these absolutely brilliant people who work very front of the front end. And I don't want to make them write databases. I don't think they want to write databases, right? So I want to be able to cover the full spectrum of things and do stuff that is all over the place. And I'm really, really close to lining this up. So fingers crossed, tell your boss to sponsor more web dev community stuff and send them my way so that we can make more of this fun stuff. And let's see if we can all have a little more fun, right? So Angular v7. What about Angular v7? We just did, didn't we just get, did Angular v7, when did that drop? Wait, Angular v7, what are we talking about right now, Brennan? I'm so confused. Did I do something? I'm not sure what happened. Anyways, you know what you all should go check out, though, speaking of Brandon, is we just did an episode on Thursday where Brandon showed us how analog works, and this was dope as hell. Oh, Fuzzy's working on V7. Oh, okay. Got it. All right. Okay. So anyways, go watch this because this is dope. And I was very, very excited about it. And I think you will be too if you go and give it a watch. So thanks, Brandon, for teaching us about analog. Where were we? We were here. And so honestly, I thought this was going to take longer. I thought this was going to be more challenging than it was. So I'm very, very excited that this just sort of worked. And so things that I would clean up, and I guess maybe we can put a little time into that, is as you style this out, I'd want to make sure that, this sort of stuff, it is client side, although I wonder, could we server render? I wonder if we can server render the logged in stuff, because then, okay, I want to check. Because if we can check on the server side what's going on, which get auth. Okay, I want to try this. Let's see what we get. I'm going to let's do this. We're going to say import get auth from AstroClerk auth server. Get auth is declared, but that's fine. And then up here, just gonna, what's the return signature on this? has no exported member get auth. Yes, it does. Export const get auth. Right? Add middleware, advanced use. Astro locals. Oh, I can just use it here. Yeah, okay. So the reason I don't need it is because it's just built into the locals. So I don't actually need to import this. And so we're going to say const user equals, and then down here, let's just dump it. Okay, so then if that works, and it does, hell yeah. Okay, this is super cool, because what that means then is that we can do stuff like we don't need the client side stuff. Now we would need the client side stuff to get, like, these are JavaScript things. So those, obviously, if we want that functionality to be built in, which is very nice to have, then we need to keep this. But the other cool thing is that, like, these sorts of things, I'm pretty sure, can be managed off-site on Clerk. Do they have hosted user pages? Because that would actually be... the account portal provides the pages necessary, hosted on Clerk servers, uses pre-built components, dedicated pages, setup guide. So yeah. So check this out. So when we get in here, we've got, where is it? Account portal here. So, like, we can do something, not sign in. Let's go to preview your user's profile. Right, so this will be the right thing. I sign in. And then we're in, right? So this, okay, so theoretically what we could do is we could actually take all of the, let's do this actually, because this will be fun to try. I can take all of this out, and instead we can say user equals await astro locals current user, right? And then what we can do is we can use this here to do different conditionals. And so we'll say user ID, right? Because if we have an ID, then they're signed in. And then it would be like href, and this is just going to go to their user account. Okay. And then if they're not signed in, we can show the sign in page. Oh, and in fact, we can just host that entirely, I think, like this. Right? So now what we've got, users possibly, no, that's fine. So then I can take this bit out and this bit out, and now watch what happens. We just got rid of all of the client-side JavaScript, and theoretically speaking, so now if we go to manage our account, look at us go. Oh, that didn't work. So we'd have to figure out a couple of the details because clearly like it would need to link back to the right things. But and then if I'm logged out, which to log out. Oh, did it refresh? Hold on. Here. We are logged out here. We're not logged out. Ooh, okay. So maybe that won't work. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I thought it would come. I mean, this is one of the things that I think is continually impressive about Clerk in general is it like it just works, and they've done a really good job of making it just work. And so usually the most time that I spend is in figuring out what they've called things, or sometimes in hunting down a setting, because they've almost always solved the thing that I need solved. It's usually just a matter of like, you know, what did they call it, or like where do they export the thing I need from. Like getting the user out of Astro Locals, which is a brilliant way of using the framework, and also caught me off guard because I assumed that it would come out of the tool. So little stuff like that. But this is pretty cool. So this has us, let's see. If I, well, what else do we have in here? User organization, create organization. Do we get like sign out stuff? Redirects. So you could do custom things, customize colors, disable the account portal. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So there are definitely ways that we can kind of take this further. Session lifetimes, users. I think you can even do things like, can I just log this user out? End all sessions or something? I guess not. Got organizations. This stuff is also cool. So like, you know, if you want to build something multi-tenant, meaning like if multi-tenant doesn't make sense, if you wanted to have a software as a service solution where people can join teams and they could potentially join multiple teams, like Figma's a good example of this, or you know, Netlify, Vercel, where you can log in and then you have to choose which team you're logging into, and on each team you have different permissions. Maybe you're an admin on one, like the team that you own, but then you only have read permissions on like something you're a guest on. That's this multi-tenant thing, and so Clerk's just got that built in, which is pretty slick. You have to upgrade if you want it to be, you know, more stuff. Like there's some cool things here where if you oh, that's cool. So you can do all this stuff when you're in testing, but then when you go live, it has to be paid to actually use it. That's actually slick because I didn't realize that you could do that. But so yeah, like this is also cool too, where if you've got this feature enabled, you can like have the anybody with the right domain name. So if you're using your company's custom email, anybody with a company email is able to like join, right? Like that's pretty slick when you can do stuff like that. And I love that I don't have to think about building this stuff because it's a huge pain. I think there's some other stuff that we can do. Let's see. Yeah, we can do avatars. Oh, nice integrations. The other thing I love is like these Jot templates are so dope. I've used them most often with Convex because I don't like Convex. And when you hook it up to Convex, it basically like you put in a couple settings on this side and you put in a couple settings on the convex side, and then you just like have user IDs. It's so perfect. Like it's legitimately an excellent flow. Like I don't have to know how any of this stuff works. When I go in to do, I think you copy one of these and put it into convex, and like that's it. And then you've got a functioning, user authenticated database. When you're just trying to build stuff, I love this so much. Like it just makes me so happy. A full rebuild. Oh no, that's always a bad time. Using clerk orgs on an internal CMS. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a lot of stuff that I would say was impractical to build a while back. Just doesn't feel quite so out of reach anymore. Like I know when I was early in my agency days, I built a CMS out of pure hubris. I was like, well, I can build something better than WordPress. WordPress is bloated and slow. I can do better. And then over the course of running my agency, realized that I had to implement all of the edge cases that WordPress was accounting for, because it turns out people do complicated stuff and want to be able to be flexible with the things that they do. All of which led to my CMS being terrible. And it also was like missing all sorts of features, like user accounts were super limited. I was the only person who could give a user an account. So my clients had to email me and wait for me to be available so that I could go create a new account for somebody. User password resets were like flaky. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. There was no concept of things like SSO. Zero chance I would have been able to implement that. And so all of these really complicated things led to me eventually abandoning my CMS altogether, because I was so in over my head with the amount of stuff I needed to build and maintain for it to meet my clients' demands. These days, with a lot of the SaaS solutions out there, stuff like Clerk, or if you don't want to use Clerk, there's Stitch, there's WorkOS, there's Okta and Auth0. They just sort of make that stuff disappear so that you don't have to do it. And you not only do you not have to do it, but you've outsourced it to a team of experts that would cost so much more to try to do it in-house, right? And so I think that it suddenly now I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I guess I could build a SaaS, because if I wanted it to, I needed SSO and stuff, I just have to make sure I'm charging enough for my SaaS that I can afford the SSO upgrade on the Clerk plan or on the Auth0 plan or whatever. Those sorts of things I think it's pretty exciting, honestly, right? Because you don't have to think of how hard would it be to manage this database. You can just think of what data do I need, because there's so many options for Convex. There's Mongo, there's Postgres, you can get Supabase, you can get Planiscale, you can get Neon, you can get whatever, right? They all are good, and depending on your use case, some are better suited than others. And you're not managing whether or not the database scales. You're not managing whether or not you have to. You don't even need to know what sharding means, right? Which is good, because the fewer times that you have to say sharding in a meeting, the better. All that stuff is just not really relevant anymore. And you have outsourced it to a team of experts. You pay them significantly less than you would pay an engineer full time on your team, and you get the benefits of them focusing full time on improving that thing. So I think the SaaS evolution of things it's got me thinking about lots of ways and things that you could build without having to have a big team, and you can build some like big team stuff. I actually think that's a pretty heartening thing, because you used to need venture capital if you were going to build anything serious, because you needed to be able to afford the security and the auth people and all the different compliance things. And now you can get those for $50 a month to start. And so you really just don't need as much capital to build something really good. And you can bootstrap a business now, hopefully on client revenue, without needing to take investment or even pay out of pocket, really, because you can go on the free tier for quite a while, to be completely honest. Yeah, they do domain validation, so I don't have to. That replacement for WordPress? No, that replacement for WordPress that I tried to build was also in PHP. It was, I mean, really, if I was going to describe it as anything, it was a very stripped down page builder. And the reason that I did it the way I did it was that most of the sites I built were super prescriptive about what you could put on the page. And so I needed a way to let people do kind of the equivalent of advanced custom fields in WordPress. So I was building something like that. And before you get any ideas that what I was building was good, it wasn't. It was really difficult to configure. It was really difficult to work with. My clients were fine with it because they didn't know that there were better options out there. But it wasn't flexible. It didn't grow well. Now the trade-off was that they were paying me way less than they would have paid somebody to like build a fully functional website for them, because I didn't know what I was worth. I was actually, given what I was building, I was getting paid exactly what I was worth. But I hadn't learned how to trust a community and like scale and take advantage of open source. I was still very much in that like young person's mindset of like, I need to build it all myself because all these other people are idiots. Which I don't know if that's a phase everybody goes through, but it's certainly one that I went through and had to outgrow. I got better. I'm better now. A friend has wanted me to build a SaaS for a long time. I told him no in the past, but yeah, I mean, that's sort of where I'm at. Like it's getting harder and harder to say that I can't do it because it's too much to build, because so much of it now is just like ready out of the box. And now it's becoming more and more like, do I really want to run a company? Because you have to run it. Like no amount of SaaS is going to take you have to do product thinking. You have to understand what your users want. You got to do research. You got to iterate. You got to actually build things that people want to use. You got to do sales. You got to do product work. You got to do support work. Like there's no shortage of hard work that'll come in with building a SaaS product. The good news though is that it's getting easier to do the foundational engineering work because a lot of it has been turned into a SaaS product. Did I do it in raw PHP? I did it in raw PHP because again, I had the hubris of thinking that only my stuff was worth using, and anybody else who had built stuff just hadn't built it right because I hadn't touched it yet, right? Which I think we've all worked with that guy. I'm glad that I was in charge of my own agency instead of on a team, because I think I would have been terrible to work with when I was that age. Lots of hard work outside the development. Do you want to be partners? Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, I really do. For anybody who's curious, like I spend probably 60% of my time in like sales meetings, or not sales. Sales is a different, like, I think people think of a very specific thing when they think of sales, but like I spend about 60% of my time on calls where I am brainstorming with people, where I'm, talking about what they're working on, how it's going, what their struggles were, all that kind of stuff. And all of that is sales, but I'm not like selling things. Like I'm not doing the hard push. I'm just asking what they're up to, and then we kick around some ideas, and if an idea lights off, let's roll, right? Then we get into, hopefully we get across the finish line on scoping it and we go make something together. But I spend a huge amount of my time like answering emails, getting on phone calls, writing up proposals, doing like drafts, contracts, invoices. Like it is a very significant amount of effort to run the business so that I can do the fun stuff of making the videos and things. But yeah, on the average week, I would say I probably spend maybe a day making video, and that typically includes the like 3 hours I spend here and the 90 minutes I spend on Learn with Jason. Usually what'll happen is I'll plan a shoot for like 3 weeks before I actually do the shoot. So it's, yeah, if you want to do this stuff, I'm not saying that it's easier. I'm just saying that there's less, some of the work is easier. I alone the world honored one. Yeah. All right, the Vinnies are starting Vinny Incorporated here. I'm into it. VinCorp. Yes. Okay. All right. So I'll tell you what. I don't think there's much more that I'm going to be able to get done today, but I will say I'm super impressed by this. And let me pull up the code again because I think it's just worth looking at how nice this is to work with. So we have this bit here where once you're signed in, you can just check here, and this is server side, right? We're server rendering this, so this is all independent of JavaScript. And then we also have over here, which one was it? Oh boy. How about we just open this up? Here, we have these client-side components where, we're loading the user button on JavaScript, where you loading up the sign-in page, that actual login form with the the OAuth buttons and the email form. All of that is functioning, and then this middleware happens at the edge, not on the browser. So again, this is all happening on the server side. So we're able to on the Astro site, if you were so inclined, you could almost eliminate JavaScript from the website entirely and still have the auth. You probably don't want to. I don't think zero JavaScript is necessarily the goal. I think the goal is minimize the amount of things that have to wait for JavaScript to load for the site to function. So things like redirects, you don't want the site to partially load and then kick off a redirect. That should happen on the server side. But things like a user button so that you have a flyout that lets people manage their profile, that's probably JavaScript that's worth having, right? So I think there's a good balance here. But what I like about this is that we have the option. It looks like we can do it both ways. It looks like the happy path is the JavaScript version. The user object and the server side is a little more of you're gonna be paving your own way. But it's really nice that we've got that option, and that we can do in our app itself. We don't have to make the app itself dependent on JavaScript. It can just be things like the profile flyout. So, y'all, this was good. I'm gonna call it here because I don't know if you can see me doing the P dance, but it's time for me to go use the restroom. So, thank you all very much for hanging out. This has been a whole lot of fun, and we'll see you on Thursday. Yes, Thursday. Mike Aparicio is going to be here. We're going to be building a design system in CSS. It's going to be dope. I am super excited to hang out with you all. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next time.